Hello and welcome to Code Red. I'm excited to be joining you as one of our new hosts. Now, don't worry, Merkel will still be hosting as well. We're just bringing more voices into the mix to explore some new topics on Code Red. As I take the mic, I want to dive a bit deeper into the technical side and to highlight the community aspects of observability. Today, we are going to start by talking about how you can contribute to OpenTelemetry, both from a technical side, but also from a community perspective. Our guest is Marylia Gutierrez, a principal software engineer at Grafana Labs, an OpenTelemetry maintainer, and a member of the OTel Governance Committee. She's going to help us break down how to get started contributing, why contributions beyond code are so valuable, and how you can become part of this vibrant community. Marylia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. Happy to be here.
Let's kick things off with our traditional question. What has been your biggest Code Red moment, whether in open source or in your engineering career in general?
So I was thinking about this question because one different thing of my job is that I was always working like a lot in observability. So I was always the one helping people with their code red situation. But there was one moment that I can think. I think of this as a more like a panic mode. Like, oh my God, how do I do this? So at a prior job, I was basically responsible for like it was an internal project that we had information about like our usage of like how customers were using a database. But the way it is, we were able to send information was using like a API like framework. They could only send to Postgres. So the Postgres, it was not the database that I wanted to save. So I had like a script that would then pass it on to a DB2 database. That one worked like no problem. But the thing is, like, because we had our own like lab, our own servers, I had the DB2 running on one of the servers that we had on our lab. I was like making updates on that server and I was like updating some of the scripts. And then I had to just delete one folder that was like had two files on it, like a easy thing. And okay, delete it. And I noticed that it was taking way too long to delete like two text files. I was like, oh no,
Oh.
what have I done? And I did the equivalent of like delete like dots on the root folder. So
Ooh.
that means that I deleted not like the contents of the database. I deleted the database. I deleted the backups. I deleted all the scripts.
Everything.
I deleted like the machine pretty much. As soon as I noticed, I tried to stop. I had a couple things that did not get deleted, but at that point was all corrupt. I was like, oh no, I just lost everything. I was like, okay, wait. I had the Postgres database still. And that one, I was running like some backups on that one. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go back to that one and send everything again. So I
Yeah.
went to get the backups. Every single one was corrupt. Every single one. Because we had like terabytes of data. And every single I was like, yeah, that's it. I'm just gonna pack my things. Bye everyone. And I was like, okay, the last like Hail Mary, I went to the basically the tool that we were using to send like the API. And I was like, okay, I know that they were sending the data. I was like, any chance you store any of this data? And they like, yes, we do for little while. I was like, that wow is enough for me. So what they did was pretty much they pretended they just received the data and they send all of the
All the
data
data
all
back.
over again. It took like a week to send all the data again because it was a lot of data. But that was my oh
But you
no,
you
this
managed
is
to get back.
yes. But but it was from like segment, which is like the API framework that we were using. So, but yes.
So by chance you actually had a backup of your backup.
Yeah.
So I guess it's always good to have additional backups in this case, or additional systems where you can like take a backup,
Yes.
just for those cases where things just
Have
go
backups
completely wrong.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, just in case, have the paper backup as well.
Yes. Awesome. So before we dive a little bit deeper into the topic, could you introduce yourself to our listeners? Maybe tell us a little bit about your role at Grafana Labs and with OpenTelemetry.
Yeah, so my name is Marylia. So I've been working on observability for many years now. And at Grafana, so the team that I'm there is called like OpenTelemetry SDK. So my job is to be a developer for OpenTelemetry, which is something that is like pretty cool. My day-to-day job is just like working
Open
upstream.
source.
All yeah, so it's like all upstream, all in the community, and that gives me like the opportunity to work on several areas of hotel, not just SDK. It's just because I keep finding things that I got interest, and I keep adding myself and like contribute. This is why I am like a maintainer of contributor experience, Portuguese localization. I am an approver of the JavaScript SDK, communications, database, semantic conventions, and just recently also a part of the governance committee as well. So
So
I'm a
you wear
little
a
all
lot of
over.
hats.
Yeah.
That's nice. So a few months ago, you published a blog post called "How to Contribute to OpenTelemetry" on the OpenTelemetry.io blog. What inspired you to write that guide, and what do you think is sort of the biggest misconception people have about contributing to a project like OpenTelemetry?
Yeah, so that came to be because I was very commonly getting just message like, I want to contribute. How do I do it? So it was a lot of just like, oh, help me. I'm here. Just tell me what to do and I would do it. As I mentioned, one of the SIGs that I'm part is the contributor experience. So is people that wanted to be a contributor of OpenTelemetry, not a user of OpenTelemetry. And that one is okay. So we are starting to see what are the challenges that people were having, so we want to improve that. So I kind of like gathered the information, like questions that people keep asking, and also the feedback that we were getting on that SIG. I was like, let me try to do something that might help out people and have a little more like concrete ideas for people. Well, yeah, the misconception I would say it is the part of, I think I even like start this on the blog, that a lot of people don't have experience with open source, so they would assume that, oh, I'm gonna get there and people would assign me things to do. People
Yeah,
would
they
just tell me like, okay, I need you to do this by this date. It's like it's not a regular job that you have your manager or your tech lead tell you like this is your tasks. No, you have to be owning your own journey there.
Yeah, I think you actually mentioned this. Like, contributors are like the architects of their own journey. I think that's what you write in the blog post, right?
Yes.
And I think that's a very, very like good way of framing it compared to what yeah, what many as you mentioned are usually used to is getting some tasks assigned, then they do them. In open source, that's just not the case.
Yes. Because we never know like how much time you have on your hands. So there are people that might be doing this on their free time or is a hobby. Or there are people like me that is my full time. So I know that someone like me would have the time to do all the things. But I cannot just you come and I know exactly how much time you have, what is your experience, what do you like to do? I would have no idea. So it's up to you to tell us like, oh, I'm working on this thing, on that thing.
So can you put like some kind of like a mindset on the approach you think is essential for someone that needs to or wants to contribute to open source and especially open telemetry?
Yeah, so I would say when you are joining, you have to find the things that interested you. So that could be several different like motives that you have. So for example, might be like, oh, the company that I work needs this feature, or like my project is using this already, but there is a bug that I need to fix. So you must have like a reason to come, or that reason could be just I want to get more experience on this area. I want to have like increase my network, so you are gonna go find the areas that you're interested, or because you already have a lot of experience, or because you don't have any and you wanna learn. So you would come, and I was really suggest joining the SIG. So to give explain what is a SIG. So SIG
Yeah.
stands for Special Interest Group. So is almost a one-to-one SIG per repo. It's not exactly, but it's an easy way to think about it. So each like repo for each of the components, languages, have this special group that people are getting together to discuss the things that we're working on that components. So this is a way, if you have no idea, there is the calendar, official hotel calendar, that you can see when all those calls are happening. So you can join and just listen in. You don't have to do anything, speak or anything. So you just listen and have an idea of like, oh, this is the type of thing that is happening here. And you're like, ah, I don't like this one. Just leave, go to the
Try
next
another
one.
one. Yeah.
Yes.
I think that that's a really good message to sort of set that it's okay to just join a meeting. You don't have to like jump on and be part of the discussion. You can just listen in, and yeah, if it's not for you, find a different place to contribute. There's many places where you can provide some insights and contribute with your experience.
Nobody would get offended if you just show up one meeting. And there are like a few SIGs that have like a lot of people. People might not even notice there are new people joining. There are a few SIGs that maybe like 2 3 people are regulars. And so if you show up, they will notice and like,
Yeah.
oh, you're here. So you might like get asked like, oh, what is like any interested that you here? But yeah,
Yeah.
it can vary also by SIG.
And it's not only six, right? There's also sub projects within the different six as well. So can you maybe explain a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so for example, if there is a project that might take a longer time, is because imagine like you have a SIG, for example, like the semantic conventions. And now we decided to work on the specific, like the how it happened like last year, the database semantic conventions. We're gonna say, okay, let's stabilize database semantic conventions. But now if we just spend the whole SIG just talking about the database, is going to take a lot of time off that SIG just for that project because that is a more complex project. So what can happen is then, okay, for let's create like a project inside this one. So it can have like a separate meeting just for the duration of that project. So for example, for the database one, we had a separate meeting so we could focus only talk about that topic. And then we would just bring updates to the main one, say like, hey, we did this. Now we had this release, just like highlights type of thing. So those are things that happened for a while and now it became stable. So that one can get shut down and just go back to the main one.
Yeah, and I guess there's also like a sub like above the six, right? Because there's also the tags within the CNTF that OpenTelemetry is also part of, right? So that is that like an even higher level of uh, organization around the different projects, right?
I would say, like, for example, we have like the projects, you have the SIGs. Sometimes you have to like cross SIGs projects going on. For example, right now, like the declarative config is happening, but this one is going to affect all the SDKs. So we want to have people from several SDKs going there, giving like their opinion and bring it back. And then we have the group that is the technical committee. So they are the ones helping out when there is like maybe like 2 groups are doing the same thing in a very technical different way, so we're like, okay, we need to align how we are doing things. Or if there are people doing donations or like creating new projects, somebody needs to review those things. So this is why we also have the technical committee that can help with that.
An interesting question maybe is because as a maintainer and a member of the OpenTelemetry governance committee, how do you sort of see like balancing governance and sort of the need for community participation? Because companies come with different angles, like maintainers come with different angles, or contributors come with different angles, right? So how do you sort of balance that that many people have different needs, but it should come together as a community project? Do you have some insights on that?
Yeah, so the way like to think about like the governance committee is that we are there to help. We are not to force any agendas. So for example, we really like each SIG to be their owner of their own SIG. So we don't want to like impose like these are the rules that everybody has to follow because they lose their autonomy. We can provide that guidance. For example, if some of them are saying like, "Oh, I'm having this issue," and we know that another SIG is doing that well, we can kind of like share. Or if there is like any conflict happening, these are the things that we can help. Or for example, we know that a project is happening, so we want to tell the other SIGs, hey, this is happening, you might want to work on this. So it's a little about more like guidance, and it's not like a top down thing. It's more like how we can help, how we can support. And then the maintainers have the autonomy to say like, okay, we are giving priority to those things right now. This is what we are working on. This is how we're gonna do like release. But of course, things also evolve. That is something that we are currently discussing because when hotel started, there was a lot about like the tree signals, so like metrics, like logs, traces, but
Yeah.
we have a lot more things. We have like profiles, we have messaging, and not all components are up to date, those things. So this is why we're trying to find ways to give more guidance on say like, hey, I think this would be the thing that we should be focusing on. Like for example, right now we are working towards graduation of hotel, and there are a few things that need to happen so we'll be able to graduate. So this is why we are giving like the guidance to the 16 like, hey, try to make everything stable, try to have this or that feature that will be required and things like that.
That's an interesting one because that is also a thing that I've been trying to follow a little bit on in is graduation of the OpenTelemetry. When do you see this happening? How much work is there in front of the different SIGs to get this done?
Yeah, so I think that is gonna be kind of like the focus of this year for a lot of the SIGs, because I think like one of the challenges that people have is, for example, the meaning of what stable means. So we see a lot of things that are like, oh, they're markers as developments or experimental. That does not mean that it's not ready for production. So that is a different. It just mean like, for example, we don't have a semantic convention for it because semantic convention we create, we say like everybody has to send the same like use the same name for this metric, for example, and then we mark that as stable and people follow it. But we might not have semantic conventions for everything. So some things are implemented, are good to go, like are ready, you can use on production. But we are saying like this value might change on a feature, and it's not like we're gonna do something that breaks. We always try to like backward compatible, or we create like a new release, like major release, and that one can break. So we are trying to also change a little the view of people, because I think that is one concern for graduation. Like, oh, is nothing is stable. I was like, no, it's just we call stable a different
Yeah,
thing. It
naming is
doesn't mean
hard.
yes. Oh, naming. I joke with the naming that even like when we did like the database semantic conventions, you think like, oh, it's very easy. Just call this metric, I don't know, schema. I was like, oh no, not all databases have schema. Okay, group, no, doesn't make sense. Okay,
Yes.
collection. Okay, what? It's just takes so much time to decide like a single name, but yes.
Yeah, I've also like noticed this within the HTTP and stuff like that. That things just
Yes.
change because yeah, that's just how it is. Naming is hard, and we all have different opinions, I guess.
I feel that is the equivalent when I don't know, when you're doing like a group project. And I was like high school, you finish the whole project and you have to pick the just the first page with the title, and you have to choose the font, and you
Yeah.
spend like so much time on just like word art.
Word out. Oh,
Like,
yeah.
that was like I finished the all the project in I don't know 1 hour, but no, I'm gonna spend 3 hours on which
Yeah,
color
getting
is
it
gonna
right.
be the
Yes. All right. So many contributors might aim to move from like first time PRs, right, to becoming actual approvers or maintainers. And what does that journey like typically look like in open telemetry? And do you have some good advice for someone that really wants to grow in this project like long term?
Yeah, so one thing that we like to see is first is like consistency. So you want to always like, for example, join those SIG calls. The progression is triager, approver, maintainer. So triager, we want to see somebody that is, well, as the name say, triaging. So like issues are coming up, so you try to look, see what makes sense, maybe start replying, kind of helping out with question. The all the SIGs will have a Slack channel, so maybe you're also there helping with questions when people have, and then you can start like reviewing PRs from other people. With that, we will notice like, okay, you're really helping out with others, so then you can become an approver. And then it is also a matter of like a time. If you do this also for a long time and there is a need for a new maintainer, then you might become a maintainer. That can vary a little of what it means depending on the SIG. Because for example, the ones that instrumentation is a little easier to understand, like what is a contribution. But we have a few that are little more open, like the end user SIG. That one is not like you have codes to see getting review. It's more about like getting surveys, getting things. So they might have like slightly different requirements, but you can always talk with the maintainers of that SIG, say like, hey, I have the goal of becoming one. How can I work towards this? Like, what do you think you should be focusing? And I know that people sometimes tend to say like, oh, for example, there are few SIGs that have a lot of people. So you say, "Oh, I want to go to that one because I know that I will get a lot of feedback on my things. I will have a lot of people to help me out." But that one is probably is gonna be harder for you to get a status just because there is already a lot of people. But there are a few SIGs that have very few people contributing. There are a few that have like 1 2 people that are regulars. So they are like craving for this help. So I would say don't overlook those ones. Really go to those ones because then you can have like a really big impact. And a lot of people want them, but we just don't have enough people to contribute. So this way, you're probably gonna like go the ladder a little faster if you're on those ones.
Okay, that's good advice. So you also mentioned like non-technical contributions as being crucial to the ecosystem. So what kind of non-code contributions do you think are like the most critical one for the health of OpenTelemetry? And do you sort of feel like that these kind of contributions are like recognized enough compared to how code contributions are being recognized in the ecosystem?
Yeah, so I think they're very important. So we have like from different levels, from the side of people that are doing instrumentation. If you go there and just like create an issue or like you vote on issue, that already helps because that helps the maintainers to know like what is the community is after, what are the things that they should focus. So now they know like, oh, everybody's voting on that issue, so let's focus on that issue. If people don't vote, they have to select what they think is important and might not necessarily match what the community want. But if we don't have the inputs, there is no way of knowing. So even like basic things like this already help, like reviewing PRs. But if you say, no, I don't know any code, documentation is a really good one to start. Because just think about it from both a contributor perspective or a user of hotel you want to use. And you go there, Hotel has so many components. I say that the good thing about Hotel is that you can do so much thing with it, and the bad thing about Hotel is that you can do so much things with it. So
Yes.
it's so hard to like, what do I do? Is like, what do I need a collector? What is a collector? I don't know. Like collector has so many like other packages. Do I need all of those? I don't know. It's just so much to learn that just having like the documentation for it. And we know that people don't like to write documentation. So this why I say like even if you just go and like okay I want to play with hotel and then you're following our documentation and if you notice that like oh there is a couple of steps missing here or something is not up to date because it changed how it works, you can create a PR to update this or to create a new one. This helps so much, and we also have the localization efforts. So we are having basically all the documentation translated to other languages. So we have like Portuguese, Spanish, Japanese, Ukraine. So it keeps like increasing. So that is something that you don't necessarily need to know about the project, but you can help with localization. And we have the team that usually have like our own like glossary of things saying, oh, this thing we translate because there are some challenges there. Like for example, we translate the word it'll trace, but we don't translate tracer because tracer is the name of the components. So for example, if we want to keep the name because if people want to actually write the code, they're gonna write tracer because that is the actual name of the component. But to say what it actually means, we translate to tell people what tracer means.
Okay.
So
So
there are a lot of things
small
there.
details.
Yes.
But that is also a way of contributing then, like just,
Oh, yes.
localization of to whatever language you are coming from so that you can help like the local community around where you're living with understanding what these things are.
Yeah, exactly. And then we see people like sharing a lot of like the translated versions to things. So, like it's really helping because you want to bring the community. So if you focus just in English, might alienate a lot of people as well.
Exactly. So I think in one of the recent contributor experience surveys, some contributors mentioned that there was some delay in feedback, and I actually also experienced this a little bit on myself on a couple of PRs. How do you see that impacting new contributors, and what can the community really do to sort of improve that whenever someone new comes into the ecosystem, is they're getting the feedback, they can see some progress.
Yeah, I know. I think like that is something everybody goes through. I also like why my PRs are not getting reviewed.
Yeah.
Because I think like one of the things that I mentioned, for example, there are a few SIGs that have a lot of people, so the chances of you getting your review are like higher, and there's also about the consistency because the first time you're gonna open a PR, we don't know who you are. We don't know how well you write code. And one challenge nowadays, a lot of people are using AI, and we see some really like bad codes that people just create and don't review at all. So that creates so much challenge for people reviewing. So you need to create basically a relationship with the SIG. So the more you contribute, people will know like, no, you were really there because you wanna help out. You wanna improve the thing. Also, if you go to the SIG and say like, hey, I have this PR up, can somebody help me? Like review, you're gonna have like a higher chance of getting feedback. So it is a little more about something 6 times. And I imagine like some of the SIG have two people, and
Yes.
having only two people to review a lot of PRs, it can take time. So this is why I do the call outs like be a contributor, because if you start contributing, you can be the one reviewing others people PR. So you're helping other people, and it just becomes the cycle, right? And then because that person had a lot of PRs merged, they would like review another person and so on.
So your advice is to just go into the different six channels and say, "Hello, I
Yes.
am I'm very interested in contributing, or I've created this PR. Can you please help me move this along?" Because
Yes.
I think at least from maybe someone that is working at a company that just like found a little bug somewhere, and they just want to contribute that may be an issue, I guess, because they might not have the
Yeah,
time
exactly.
to go in and engage with the actual six, right? So how do we get more like companies to contribute and help with some time from their developers to basically help improve the ecosystem overall?
It was a good example that you gave, because there are also like the different level of contributions. We have people that come saying like, "Hey, I'm using this and it has a bug. So I did the fix and I just need help to review." So just by like sending like the message, it is a way to get attention to yours. So we know that like, okay, it's not like you're gonna be consistent and continue on, but that is something that is really important. So we sometimes even classify of issues that open as priority, saying like, oh no, this is like really breaking something. So we try to really review those first. So, just by kind of like giving the shout out, hey, I'm doing this. Can somebody help me out? It really helps. If you're doing like smaller things here and there, when I have like small PRs, sometimes I just get on the mindset that like, okay, it might take a little while for review because it's not urgent. But if you plan to do something that is a little major, I would ask first, because you imagine that you were like, oh no, I want to change completely how this thing is done. You want to check with the maintainers, because they might say like, oh, we actually have a plan to change this already, or like, no, this will not align with something that we are working on, so we don't want to you waste your time. So if you have planning or something like a major change, make sure to check and say like, I'm gonna work on this, is anyone else also working on this?
Yeah, because they probably know a little bit better what impact that possible change could have. So
Exactly.
always go out and check with the maintainers. I think that's good advice as well.
Yes.
Are there any ways to within the ecosystem to like get a mentorship? And I know from the Kubernetes project we had like shadowing and stuff like that. Are there any ways that the OpenTelemetry community is like thinking about like nurturing the new like contributors to this ecosystem by providing mentorship, etc.?
So there are a few mentorships that are, so they're not official from hotel, but we create like the hotel to other things. Like for example, outreachy. I was a mentor there on the previous cohort. For the Linux Foundation, there was I think there was one that is happening now. So we tried sometimes add hotel to those ones. So there is no like official for hotel. But one thing, as I mentioned, like the SIG that I am, that is the contributor experience, we try to help out people that want to start. So we have a new channel that is Open Telemetry New Contributor. So if you are very lost and like like which maybe you're like just looking for the right channel, or send a message there that we can then guide you to like, oh, this is where you should be going, things like that. Remember, it's not that thing of like, I'm here, just tell me what to do. Again, it's not about that. It's more like, I want to work on this thing, where it is, you can kind of like point it out. And you can also join the contributor experience seek if you have feedback that you think it would help the community. So, for example, the outreach one that I did was because a lot of people say like, I don't know how to run things on my computer. I have no like guidelines to be a contributor for each SIG. So that project we actually created, you can see now all the repos have a tab of contributing. So that one is going to show versions of things that you need, how to run tests locally and things like that. We have also someone from that SIG doing surveys right now with people that are just starting to get feedback and see how we can improve
How we can
that.
improve, yes. Yeah, because the OpenTelemetry ecosystem is so wide these days, right? I think it's over 90 different repositories in
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know how many different languages. So
Oh, yes.
so there's all kinds of ways to run this and get all of this up and running, so you can start contributing.
Yes.
Maybe looking a little bit ahead, what do you hope to see in sort of the future of the OpenTelemetry community? Are there like any big goals or milestones, maybe other than like graduation of the project itself, and that you are sort of like particularly excited about?
Yeah, so one area that we also want to focus on, because it can be hard for you to do like the hello world, let's say, because the very basic hello words, it works for a lot of people, but a lot of people don't have hello world type of applications. So it can be very hard just to initialize and knowing, okay, I want to collect, but I don't even know what I'm collecting. So we want to make the instrumentation easier for people. The ideal scenario for me would be the thing like I just install one thing, run, and that's it. I don't have to think about which components I need, which languages. It will like
It
auto
just
detect
works.
everything for me and just send. So I think that is the future of how things are hopefully getting there eventually.
Awesome. So finally, maybe for anyone listening who is sort of on the fence about contributing because they feel they may not be experienced enough, or so what would you say to sort of encourage them to start contributing and maybe like give them the your best free advice or something like that?
Yeah, so I would say don't be afraid. The community is very welcoming. We want people to help, so we were there to guide you if you like have doubts. You're like, I want to learn this area. I sometimes have like one-on-one with people just to teach them thing. And one thing that I also say, like, don't be afraid of your first PRs, the amount of comments. It's because it is nothing personal. Don't worry. I even joke that on the localization, because we have those so like nitpicks things. When I see a person opening the PR for the first time, I usually message them saying like, don't be alarmed by the amount of comments that I'm about to put it on, because it is just
It
how it
can be
is.
overwhelming,
It can be
yes.
overwhelming. I was like, it's nothing. I'm not saying like your PR is bad. No, it's just you don't know the guidelines for this specific thing. So it's just a matter of learning. I had like somebody that he joined it and he even tells the story later because like, oh yeah, she told me that. And then that PR had 150 comments.
150 comments. That's quite a lot.
I was like, see, but nowadays there are PRs that I put zero comments for him. See, it
Yeah.
is a matter of like
So you are like maturing and learning how to contribute.
learning.
Yes.
Exactly. So don't be afraid. Just join, try it out. You don't have to like commit right away for something like join a SIG. You don't like go to the next one. Keep an eye on for like things popping up. Sometimes just like looking at the Slack messages, and all the SIGs are recorded. So you can also watch the recording if you don't feel comfortable joining. So you can just watch and see, have an idea of how things work as well. But yeah, just dive in.
Just dive in, start with
Yes.
Slack so that you like familiarize yourself with who's there and make your
Yes.
intentions clear and then
Yes.
start contributing.
Yes.
Awesome. Maria, thank you so much for joining us on Code Red. I think a lot of listeners will like walk away with a much clearer sense of how to get started with OpenTelemetry and how to become part of this community around it. Also from the non-code contributions as well. I think that is a great point to get across as well, that it's not only code that counts. Code does count a lot, but you can do a lot of things within the ecosystem to help it progress even further without like contributing code as well. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
For those listening, I hope today's episode showed that contributing to open source doesn't have to be intimidating. Whether you're writing code, improving documentation, joining a SIG meeting, or just asking good questions, every contribution matters. If you want to learn more, in the episode description we'll include links to Marylia's blog post, How to Contribute to OpenTelemetry, and the OpenTelemetry community resources, so go ahead and check them out. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm excited to continue this new chapter of Code Red with more deep dives into observability, platform engineering, open source, and the people driving these technologies forward. We'll see you in the next episode.